In a dusty vault beneath a Hollywood studio, archivists made a discovery that would shake the entertainment world. Unmarked film canisters. Decades old. And inside, Fred Astaire, moving in ways the world had never seen. This wasn't just another dance routine. This was a secret he'd kept hidden, a performance so personal, so raw, that he never wanted it released. But why? What was Fred Astaire hiding? And what does this lost footage reveal about the man who danced on ceilings, who made it look effortless, who became immortal? This is the untold story of the greatest dancer who ever lived, the loves that broke him, and the demons he danced away from his entire life. Omaha, Nebraska, 1899. Frederick Austerlitz entered the world fragile, underweight, the kind of child doctors whispered about. His parents, Austrian immigrants, struggled to make ends meet. His father worked at a beer company. His mother, Anne, had bigger dreams. She saw something in little Fred and his older sister Adele. A spark. A way out. At 5 years old, Fred was yanked from childhood and thrust onto the vaudeville circuit. While other boys played baseball, Fred rehearsed 12 hours a day. His feet bled inside his shoes. His mother pushed harder. Again, she'd say. Again. Adele was the star. Everyone loved Adele. Fred was just the boy who danced with her, the supporting act, the one critics barely mentioned. He was rejected. Mocked. A Hollywood talent scout once wrote about young Fred, can't sing. Can't act. Balding. Can dance a little. Those words carved themselves into his soul. For the rest of his life, no matter how many standing ovations, no matter how many millions loved him, Fred Astaire believed he wasn't good enough. Broadway first fell in love with the Astaires in the 1920s. Fred and Adele became the golden siblings of American theater. Shows like Funny Face and Lady, Be Good turned them into legends. But Fred lived in fear. Fear that Adele would leave. Fear that without her, he was nothing. Then, 1932. Adele married British aristocrat Lord Charles Cavendish and retired. Fred's worst nightmare came true. He was alone now. At 33, he had to prove himself all over again. Hollywood called. RKO Studios. Screen tests. And then, flying into his life like a storm, came Ginger Rogers. Their first film together, Flying Down to Rio in 1933, changed everything. They only had one number together. But when the karaoke hit the screen, audiences gasped. This was chemistry. This was magic. 9 more films followed. Top Hat. Swing Time. Shall We Dance? Fred invented moves that defied physics. He danced on walls. On ceilings. He made partnering look like romantic poetry. But here's what nobody knew. Fred was a tyrant in rehearsals. He demanded perfection. Ginger's feet bled. She wore through dozens of pairs of shoes. He'd rehearse one sequence 40, 50 times. Again, he'd say, just like his mother. Fred won an honorary Academy Award in 1950. He'd revolutionized movie musicals. But the little boy who couldn't act never fully believed it. Phyllis Potter, 1933 to 1954, the love that saved him. When Fred met Phyllis Potter in 1933, he was a newly minted Hollywood star, terrified of his own success. She was a 25-year-old Boston socialite, divorced with a young son. Elegant. Sophisticated. Unimpressed by fame. Fred fell instantly, desperately in love. He proposed within months. They married on July 12, 1933, at Phyllis's aunt's New Jersey home. Hollywood was shocked. Fred Astaire, the eternal bachelor of dance, tied down? But Phyllis became his anchor. She gave him 3 children, Fred Jr., Ava, and Peter. She created a home away from the madness of Hollywood. For 21 years, Fred had peace. Real peace. He'd finish shooting and rush home to her. She was the only person who could calm his anxieties, his obsessive perfectionism. Then, 1954. Phyllis was diagnosed with lung cancer. Fred watched the love of his life waste away. She died on September 13, 1954. She was only 46 years old. Fred shattered. He stopped dancing. He stopped working. Friends found him in his bedroom, staring at her photographs, unable to move. The man who brought joy to millions couldn't find any for himself. He wore black for 2 years. His children worried he'd never recover. The lonely years, 1954 to 1980, love he couldn't keep. For 26 years after Phyllis died, Fred dated. There were beautiful women, actresses, socialites. But nothing stuck. He was too damaged, too devoted to a ghost. He was linked to actress Barry Chase, his young dance partner in television specials throughout the late 1950s and 1960s. They had undeniable chemistry on screen. Rumors swirled. But Fred never remarried. He couldn't. Robin Smith, 1980 to 1987, the controversial final chapter. Then, at 80 years old, Fred shocked everyone. He married Robin Smith on June 24, 1980. She was 45. A former jockey. Fierce. Independent. Beautiful. Hollywood whispered. Was she after his money? His fame? Fred didn't care. He was happy again. Robin brought him back to life. They rode horses together. Traveled. Laughed. But after Fred died in 1987, the whispers turned to accusations. Robin fiercely controlled Fred's legacy, his image rights, his estate. His children from Phyllis were shut out. Legal battles erupted. Robin claimed she was protecting Fred's wishes. His family claimed she was erasing them. To this day, the family remains fractured. Robin Smith Astaire controls Fred's name, his likeness, and the secrets he left behind. Fred Astaire was haunted. By inadequacy. By perfectionism. By the belief that he was never good enough. He suffered from crippling insecurity. Before every performance, he vomited from nerves. He'd watch his own films and see only mistakes. He'd obsessively critique himself, unable to see what the world saw. Genius. He was a difficult partner. Ginger Rogers later said, "Fred gave me elegance, but I gave him sex appeal." Their partnership was brilliant, but strained. Fred controlled everything. Every step. Every gesture. Ginger felt like a prop sometimes. When they stopped making films together, she felt relieved. Fred also carried guilt about his sister Adele. After she retired, her life fell apart. Her first child was stillborn. Her second child died at age 3. She divorced, remarried, and suffered through depression. Fred visited her constantly, but felt he'd failed her. The one person who'd always been there for him, and he couldn't save her. And then, there was the routine. The one he never wanted released. It was filmed in 1940, during a private rehearsal. No crew. No audience. Just Fred, alone in a studio, dancing to a song written for Phyllis. It was raw. Unpolished. Heartbreakingly personal. He moved differently. Slower. More vulnerable. This wasn't Fred Astaire the performer. This was Frederick Austerlitz, the broken boy, dancing his truth. He ordered the footage locked away. Not for the public, he told the studio. Ever. When archivists found it in 2019, they debated for years whether to release it. Fred's estate, controlled by Robin, initially refused. But in 2023, a single clip leaked online. 30 seconds of Fred Astaire, unmasked. The world wept. Fred Astaire died on June 22, 1987, at age 88, from pneumonia. He was buried next to Phyllis, where he'd always wanted to be. His influence is everywhere. Michael Jackson studied Fred's moves. Gene Kelly called him the greatest. Mikhail Baryshnikov said, "He is the only dancer I would pay to watch." Fred made 70 films. He revolutionized movie musicals. He proved that dance could be cinematic art. He made the impossible look easy. But his real legacy? He showed us that perfection is a prison. That even legends are human. That behind every effortless performance is blood, sweat, and a soul screaming to be enough. Fred Astaire once said, "The hardest job kids face today is learning good manners without seeing any." But maybe the hardest job Fred faced was learning to forgive himself. To see himself the way the world saw him. He never did. That lost footage, the one he hid for decades, shows us why. In those 30 seconds, we see a man dancing not for applause, but for survival. Dancing not to impress, but to feel. Dancing because it was the only language he truly spoke. Fred Astaire was not just a dancer. He was a poet who wrote with his feet. A man who loved deeply, lost tragically, and gave us beauty in the face of his own pain. The routine may have been hidden. But the man. He was always right there, in every spin, every leap, every impossible moment where he defied gravity and made us believe in magic. Fred Astaire didn't just dance. He flew. And he took us with him.